Hi, this is Dr. Dan Ratner. Today I am joined once again by Carrie. Today we are going to be looking at the doubt column in our mind-body consultation. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below and we'll get back to you personally. And finally, you can reserve your place in one of my seminars or purchase any of my mind-body guides, also known as the PDFs, at www.crushingdoubt.org. Check out our website for our latest promotions and opportunities. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Carrie on the doubt column. Hi, Carrie. I want to welcome you back. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and I have so much admiration for everybody who does this, so I'm going to make it as easy on you as possible. Let's start off, though, by just checking in about how you felt the first session went. I know we're talking about that we need to build a plan that's going to work, going forward from this. But right now we're just focusing on the column. So how did you feel about the emotions column? Do you feel like it's rounding into form at all?
Yeah, I feel like it is like in a form, and I feel like I've built that form like over time in all like the 3 years of therapy that I've done. So I feel like I, had like a package to give you in the last session so that
Yep.
you kind of know what's going on like emotionally and like the things that have happened in my life so far that probably play into the symptoms and the way that my thoughts form and things that I have fears or doubts about and where those kind of stem from.
Yep. Absolutely. And what I like about the columns is they continue to organize. So instead of feeling that it's this kind of jumbled mess of emotions that's all important but kind of hard to pin down what's operating when, it starts to separate it out and say, well, you got this theme, and you got this theme, and you got this theme, and at a given moment, maybe one theme is more operative than another. Now, the same is true with respect to doubt. So today, what we're going to do is get into the 3 levels of doubt. And I'm sure you know this because you've done a lot of this work, but just to remind you, that level 1 doubt is when you have any thought that maybe this is structural or purely physiological and it has nothing to do with mind-body. That's level 1 doubt. Level 2 doubt is, no, I know this is mind-body, but maybe it can only help me partway. Or how far can it go? And level 3 doubt is, I have no doubt this is mind-body. I have no doubt that mind-body work can take away all the symptoms, but can I do it? Is there something going on for me? And based on what I know about your emotions column, level 3 doubt's gonna rage pretty big for you.
Right. Yeah, that's the heavy hitter for me.
Yeah. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go through those 3 levels of doubt, and we're going to start to get as many doubts as we can kind of more articulated in a certain way. And I'm going to help you recognize in what you're saying what doubts we can pull out of it. A lot of times people will say a single sentence to me and I'll hear 5 doubts in it.
Yeah, I recognize that.
And that's not a bad thing. It could feel daunting in a way. It could feel like, oh my God, there's a lot of doubt there. But the ironic thing is actually that's part of what we want, is to help you see, oh, wow, there's a lot of doubt here. And the reason I say that is if you recognize that there's a lot of doubt, in a way that can bring you hope because it explains why you're having so many symptoms. It explains why it's dragged on as long as it has. So it makes sense of it. Then on top of it, I give you ways to actually deal with the doubt. First, we articulate it. Then we combat it with science and logic in some kind of effective manner. I did a video not too long ago about those 2 different theories. I don't know if you got to see that, but laying out the 2 different theories, it's a way that I combat doubt. But I do want to say one other thing just for us to keep an eye on here. Just was in a group session that I was leading, and I came to this understanding about something, which is sometimes you can have doubts piled upon doubts, which of course everybody who's listening to this has it had at various points. It's how doubt works. If you can get to the root doubt, what was the thing that opened the door to all of them in the first place? That's where you can make the most progress. So that's one of the things we may look for today some.
Yeah, I can already label that one. And it was one that I wanted to bring forward today. So
Why don't we just start there? Go ahead. Tell me what it is.
So I kind of have three main things that solidify my doubt. I feel like it's the amount of time that I've known about TMS work and have dedicated to practicing the tools and accessing different
Yep.
experts in the field. I feel
Yep.
like I feel like once this gets put out, people will be like, "Yeah, I know. I've talked to her. Like, I've talked to her. Like, she's been very active in the TMS groups and Facebook and that sort of thing." So
Right.
it's like the amount of time that I've put in, and then like the tools that I've used, and those haven't fully eradicated it.
Yep.
I definitely have a lot of the level 1 and level 2 doubts down because nothing is as severe as it was when it began. And so I already like have eliminated those two, and I've eliminated them based on different people that I've worked with, and basically kind of even what they've said, even in like the alternative medicine realm. It's for me, like a lot of the practitioners that I saw were like, this is an emotional root. Like the acupuncturist that I saw, exactly, like this is emotional root. This is a heart problem. Like it's not a physical heart problem, but an energy heart problem. Naturopaths that I saw is just like, this is perfectionism. Like it all was like, no, like there's nothing physically wrong with you. So I feel like I've eliminated level 1 and level 2. So, and then the severity also has kept my doubt going. And I feel like that started like right away when I got into like the TMS communities, because I thought everyone kind of had the amount of symptoms and severity that I had. So I was just going in and I thought, wow, like everybody's going to understand like the level of severity. Like this is what TMS is. It's like gets you pretty much non-operational. And then as I interacted with a few people, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for you. Like mine is not that bad. And I'm like, oh God, like, you know,
Nice.
like, am I going to be able to overcome this? Or am I, you know, like just kind of a fool? Or why do I have this level of severity when somebody else is kind of hobbling around with a knee that hurts and still able to go to work, still able to do maybe everything except for exercise? And I'm like, I'm totally, you know, debilitated. So I feel like that started like right from the beginning, like the severity, and really started playing in with my doubts.
And you said there was a third?
No, time, severity, and like the amount of effort and tools.
Oh,
And
okay. All
like
right.
I've been
So,
putting in like the, you know, like for example, like curable and journal speak. Like I did everything, and there were even people who would come on onto like the Facebook group, and they would say, "I've done everything, and I'm not getting better." And I haven't done the writing exercises. And then people were like, oh, well, do the writing exercises. Like that's going to be the nail in the coffin for you, like to clear this out. And I'm like, I've done it all. Like I've restarted the program 3 times. I've been just daily on this.
Yep.
And then that turned into like, well, maybe you need to work with a somatic experiencing practitioner. I'm like, okay, like if that's what's going to help me, then that's what I'll do. So then I went and saw somebody that specialized in that, and that person actually had chronic pain still. So like that was just like, oh my gosh, like he walks around with a cane sometimes and he's younger than me. Like maybe this can't be fully eradicated. So that seeing that practitioner brought in a lot of doubt that I could get fully better and fully like return to my previous life, because this person hadn't, even though he strongly believed like somatic experiencing therapy got him to the point where he could work and be a functional parent and all that. And I'm like, no, like the perfectionism came in, and I'm like, no, I need to be 100% better. Like, and I know I can be. And if you're telling me like this isn't going to fully work for me, or it's triggering like that fact that you have done this practice for a long time and you're not fully better.
Yeah. I mean, let me say one thing about that, and then we'll dive into these doubts. First of all, I don't think that's perfectionism in you. I think that's a very understandable and attainable wish that you can beat this fully. with that practitioner, I would say he was struggling with doubt himself, and that's why he wasn't getting fully where he needed to go. And at some level, I think you knew that that would be problematic in some way.
Yeah.
So, my heart goes out to him too, because, he's just suffering and he's trying to make his way. But I think it's very important that we get clarity to the point where you feel these doubts are settled. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I wanted to say is right there, I think we could help you dismiss the doubt that, oh my God, that guy is doing this work, believes in this, but look at him. And we could say, but there's a reason for it.
Okay. Yeah.
He has doubt. I can guarantee you that's why.
Okay. Yeah. So I haven't been able to really settle that out of my mind.
Right.
Why isn't he fully better when this is what he does as a profession?
So let me ask you this then. It doesn't matter what I think. Based on what I just said, though, mm-hmm. does that feel like it can settle it for you? That explains why he is a practitioner in this field, but still is hurting in that way?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It's totally identifiable to me. Anytime I can see that now in the future, I'll be like, oh yeah, there's a missing link for that person.
There is. And listen,
given up on finding it.
What's that?
And I feel like they've kind of given up on finding it.
Yeah, and look, so many people, including the practitioners out there, don't have the full information, in part if they're not factoring in doubt. This is why I do what I do. Because mm-hmm. Much as I love the TMS community and the mind-body community, and much as they're doing such great work across the board, I think that there are parts that they can miss, especially about doubt. Sometimes about power too. Those are the two poles that I bring that are very different. If we apply it to you, we can apply it to this other guy, and right. then you don't need to think, what does this mean? Because the only thing it means is he's got doubt. If he didn't have doubt, he'd be fine. He wouldn't have that anymore. Mm-hmm. So as long as that feels like it brings that one to rest to you, then that's doubt column work right here. We identified the doubt, we brought it out. I countered with a piece of logic that's pretty hard to work your way around because it makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. Why would he not operate the exact same way as you or me or everybody else? Mm-hmm. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
I was just going to say, are we going to run back to,
coming back to the others.
Okay, I'm, really curious about, curable. I don't know if you want to talk specifics, but, why curable and I've seen people...
I'll talk specifics. Listen, I am not one to hide anything. I think hiding things leads to doubt. Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm going to tell you exactly what I really think is going on. I want you to tell me exactly what you have grappled with. Mm-hmm. That's what the doubt column is for. You don't need to be careful about anybody because this is for you.
Right.
So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say kind of how I've operated is I had so much faith in curable, and that the stories are remarkable. I've been there basically since it had started. And so all the podcasts that were coming out through their podcast episodes, I started right from the beginning, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so remarkable. And there are a lot of book hearers in there on their podcast. And so I was very hopeful, all I needed to do was read the Sarno book. And by the end of the Sarno book, I would be back to work on Monday, and then when that didn't happen, I'm like, well, why did this guy? And I'm like, well, it's probably because he had ankle pain and I have 20 symptoms going on. So then I'm like, I just need to work the program. I just need to continually work it. And then my brain just needs to get rewired. And I think I was going in the community and asking questions why isn't this working for me? And one of the TMS doctors actually came on and replied to me, and he said, well, this takes anywhere from 6 months to 24 months. People just need to keep working it. And I'm like, okay. But then as that 24-month timeline came up, and I wasn't I made great progress. But then as that came up, I'm like, oh my God, what am I, I haven't fully eradicated this. And I also was on a timeline to get back to work too. So that was like a 2-year thing. And I'm like,
Okay.
I really need to make this deadline. So there's a lot of pressure on me to like get back to my life and get these symptoms to the point where I could feel like I wasn't going to call out sick. And so I didn't feel like that. And so then I had a lot more doubt, right? Because I'm like, I worked this program like over and over and I'm not getting there. So then I started looking for other things to fill in the cracks, like a TMS practitioner. Like I said, the somatic therapy happened before that, and I did a somatic program, which like she believed like you needed to work on this like 2 hours a day, like solidly for up to 7 years was her philosophy. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in with an answer to this, and what I want you to do is always push back against my answers with your questions and concerns or confusion or fear that comes up in relation to it. Because ultimately, as I said, it doesn't matter what I think. This is all about what goes on between you and yourself and your mind. But where I can be of help is I can bring in some information, some ways of thinking about it that could get things settled. So here's what I'm going to say about this. It's really interesting that people talk about time frames in the way that they do, because the way that I think about it is there is no time frame. There is only belief. Belief system is going to determine what happens. Yeah. So for the people who got a book cure, first of all, I can appreciate that from your perspective, you would think, wow, they are lucky. I mean, I know you're happy for them too, but it's really, they're lucky and you feel like you're not. A couple things I want to say that could combat some doubt about that. And I'm not saying this as thinking it's good news that this is the case, but there are plenty of people who get a book cure and then they're going to get symptoms later because they won't have worked through things fully. And some of those people are even going to get symptoms back and get stuck where you are and think it worked for me before. Why is it not working now? I'm not saying I wish that for any of them. Right. Of course not. But I'm more wanting to help you see that this isn't about some people are better than others or some people have less of a time frame. The time frame is 100% determined by belief. And you have had lots of reasons to not believe. In fact, one of the things that's gone on for you in the mind-body community is, in a way, it has contributed to you believing less because you've done so much work and you've spent so much time. That makes you doubt, then there must be something wrong, and even more reason to believe this isn't going to get better. But here's the missing ingredient that nobody's talking about, but I do. It's all because of doubt. So your doubt goes up and your symptoms go up, or the likelihood that they'll, come down goes down. What I want you to see is you are constantly on a trajectory that's based on your belief, and you have not gotten the help you needed to believe differently. That's part of what I'm trying to provide you here and going to provide you here is if my answers make sense to you, then it starts to build confidence. If my answers aren't making sense, doubt is going to go up. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Go ahead. It looked like you had.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, that's kind of frustrating for me at the same time because, like, I feel like I totally believed, right? Like, I totally believed in all these things that I was doing, and I totally believed that. And then what would happen is, like, I'd have a really high symptom day where, like, everything would come back. And I'm
but see this. So I'm going to, this could be a little bit blunt, not towards you, but,
no, I want it. Just say it.
Listen, I don't think the information you were getting was quite good enough. I think that you did your best to believe in it. But if it's not capturing all corners, how can you believe in it?
Right. And I think maybe that's why I was hopping to different,
of course,
information that people were giving me, like, well, if this isn't working, like, you need to go deeper and you need to do the trauma work and you need to do, like, and then so then I would do it. Like I would do anything pretty much anyone would tell me except for pull out my teeth that have fillings in them. Like seriously, like we got to that point and I'm like, no, I'm not going to see you anymore. If you're going to say like I need to pull out my teeth with fillings in it, we're done here. Like,
yeah, good. I'm glad you drew the line somewhere.
Yeah, so I'm like, this is done.
I used to say that I would have drunk a bucket of sand to get the relief. And I hear you. That's what you were doing. You have been consistently going after it, and you've worked harder and harder and harder.
Right.
When you say that you're frustrated about that one thing about belief,
mm-hmm.
What I want to say to you is the fault isn't that you didn't believe hard enough.
Okay.
Certainly not that. The fault isn't even that those systems have nothing good to offer or anything like that. But certainly for a certain type of mind, but I actually just think in general, if things don't make full sense, you can't relax into it. And I just don't think it ever made full sense to you.
Yeah, it never made full sense because like for a lot of, I mean, I had slight symptoms like since I was 5, I had allergies and like that kind of was showing up through, and that's actually one of my symptoms still. But anyway, like that's the one that showed up early, but it didn't like totally make sense to me because I've never like had a lot of the debilitating symptoms that people had talked about. And I never had like crippling anxiety before or crippling like depression that a lot of people in like the trauma realm talk about. So it felt like really out of place in what I was digging up because it didn't seem quite right, or the people didn't seem quite like the people or the profile that I was dealing with.
Yeah, well, one of the things you've been struggling with, and this goes to the severity question idea, you sometimes think, well, but I seem to be different than these people. So think about it this way, and I want you to cut yourself some real slack about this. How could you believe fully in any of this when it wasn't making sense? I mean, it made some sense. It was making sense of some of the things.
Mm-hmm.
So in my seminars, the first day, the very first thing I talk about is, why is this going to work differently for you? Which is really the question that everybody's asking.
Right.
And then I get into, okay, the reason that this is going to work differently is that you have so much information coming at you from all different angles. How are you supposed to know what's what?
Right.
Well, my system and the way I talk about it is designed, in part, to make sense of everything as much as I can. And what that means, obviously, is it's a pretty extensive system because there's going to be thousands upon hundreds of thousands, millions of questions that need to be able to be answered. Well, I've created a framework that I'm seeing works for all the different questions.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to do is keep bringing that to you.
Right.
And to say to you, the reason this will work when the others haven't is because the system is built around just a complete rigidity about making sense.
Yeah, and that's what I need. Like I'm a very, like when I'm learning stuff, I like it to be like rigid and planned out. And that's kind of what attracted me to your work and what you're doing, because I know Barb had said this in the previous podcast episodes too. It's just like, that's how my mind operates. You know, I'm very like strategic. Like if I want like a degree, or if I want to run a marathon, like here's the training plan, like here's what you need to do, like put in the work, put in the effort. And that's what I was used to, right? And then like, so then I came and applied like that mindset to this work too. It's just like, okay, I have curable, like I just need to do a writing exercise like this many times a week, a meditation this many times, like, you know, like, but the rigidity didn't quite work out for
well,
me.
you're a systems person.
Yeah.
Systems work for you. But if the system isn't quite good enough,
right,
and you're an inquisitive, smart person, and on top of it you have some worries, so that adds to the degree to which you might question things, the system starts to show cracks. And if it's not set up really well, then those cracks lead to huge levels of doubt.
Right.
Even about small things. I mean, you could be like, I hear you, you're making 95% sense, but that 5% not making sense makes me really not sure about you.
Right. And I think that's probably why I haven't been in your seminars, because like there's like that 5% that's been like, oh gosh, like Carrie, really, you're gonna spend another like, amount of money, and you're gonna like put your belief on the line, and then what?
Well, the one thing I can certainly promise you about that is, at the very least, the seminars are designed to tackle this exact issue you're talking about. So at worst, at least I'm diving in on the very issue you're struggling with.
Right.
Now you will have to measure, do my answers make sense to you?
Yeah.
But what we're dealing with right now is a big level of doubt, just many doubts. Let's articulate them a little bit.
Right. Yes.
I'm just going to say a couple of them. So what I'm hearing is, why are some people getting better from these systems, but I'm not?
Mm-hmm. That's one of my huge ones.
That's a question that actually needs to be answered. But the good news is I have an answer for you.
Right.
And it's even better news. It's not they're getting better and you're not because there's something wrong with you. I actually think what's happening is there are some very good systems out there that have holes in them.
Mm.
And some people they don't get thrown off as much by those holes, and they're able to use the system enough to get what they need. You are, and I mean this is good news and as a compliment, you're much more exacting than that.
Right.
You're not going to believe something unless it's really exact.
Right. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it hasn't been as useful for getting rid of your symptoms as,
No, and it makes life a little bit harder too. But
Well,
when I know something's really factual, then it's like, I'll go with it. And sometimes it causes conflict with people too, because I'm so confident in it, because I've spent so much time like examining it and being sure of it.
But there's upsides to that. Like when you're certain of something and you're totally sure, then you have real confidence, much bigger confidence. Or the fact that you're so thorough and exacting about these things, to me, yes, it means that it would take longer potentially for you to get the relief. But when you do get the relief, it will be permanent.
Right. That's what I've told myself. Like, that's what I tell myself.
It's true.
Like my worst days. It's like, okay, like here we are again. Like, ooh, but I know
it's true.
when I get out of this, like it's going to be done for good. So,
well, take this.
I'll take this day.
Take the practitioner with the cane as an example.
Right.
He was somebody who was certain to a certain degree, so he got some relief.
Right.
But in a way, he wasn't being exacting enough. He wasn't demanding enough of the theories. And as such, he was kind of settling for a plateau.
Right. Yeah.
That's what he was settling for. And you watched it and you thought, well, this could be trouble.
Right. And he even had a Sarno book in his office, so I thought I was exactly in the right place. I was so upset.
Well, here's the thing, Carrie, you can push back on me about this as much as you need to, but I do think you're in the right place now.
Yeah.
And the reason is what I do addresses exactly what you've been grappling with. I'm not hearing that anywhere else out there in the way that it's being done.
Right.
The mind-body community is doing all kinds of great things,
right.
but they're not necessarily addressing this question that you're bringing up.
Right. And I think all of us want to get better as fast as we can. And another thing, like as cheaply as we can. So it's like curable seems like a good deal because it's so cheap. It's a cheap way to get better.
Yes.
And you can do it on your own. And it's like, you're not dependent on anyone but yourself, which I'm very dependent on myself, which is why, I'm just like, I don't need anyone to be accountable to. Like, I'll do the work.
Yeah. And look, Curable is great for many of the things that they do. And I think it's admirable what they're doing to try to bring it in an affordable way. These things are very important, but reality is reality. When you run into a situation like you're running into, where, yes, you've tried their system, but it's not working, you need to know why.
Right.
And
not keep reworking the system. Because that's what I would do. I'd uninstall the app and reinstall it so that I could start all over again, because I'm like, well, I'm missing something. When I probably wasn't missing anything. I was missing what they were offering, right? Is what you're saying.
Well, actually, no. Well, that may be what we'll have to sync up here, make sure that I have the right understanding of what
Yeah.
you're saying. What I'm saying is not that you were missing what they were offering.
Right.
What I'm saying is that as good as they are, they weren't offering a particular thing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Okay, just making sure we're on the same page about that.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I do the work that I do is that I'm offering something that is different.
Right.
And it came out of my experience. It came out of what I wished was there that was not being offered in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've talked about that when I went to see Eric Sherman. He is a mind-body informed therapist. And what I really wanted was a therapy-informed mind-body expert. That's what I wanted. I was like, I'm not here for therapy.
Right.
I am here to get my symptoms better.
Right. Yeah. And that's probably where I've fallen in the hole with, I've gone through 6 therapists. It's kind of embarrassing, but that's exactly, you know, like the hole that I've ran into, except for with one, who is TMS trained and very in depth. And I mean, I feel like I got the furthest with her because I didn't even have to explain the mind and body stuff because she like, knew it, you know? So I'm like, I'm in the right place. But then, yeah, I don't know. I think.
Yeah, well, I got to a point where I wouldn't go to a therapist who didn't understand the mind-body connection in some way. There was just no way.
Exactly, that's where I'm at now, and I am working with somebody locally now. Anyway, that's gonna connect with you, but
okay.
Yeah, but that's like one of my criteria. Like, I won't even see anyone that doesn't. And I mean, I thought the first time I thought I was in the right place because she was chronic pain therapist, and so like I'm like, okay, like I'm in the right place. Like, therapy at that point was free for me, and it was EMDR, which people say is just amazing and can make the process go so much faster. So I'm like, yeah, I want fast, and then it didn't. I don't know.
Here's the thing: you're dealing with level 3 doubt, as we talked about.
Yes, very much so.
You're kind of saying maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe the severity of this is too much. Maybe I'm different than everyone else.
Right.
Maybe I didn't understand the system well enough. Maybe I. You know, there's a lot of
maybe it just doesn't work for my brain. Like, what's being offered at the
But you know what's so interesting to me, Carrie, and here's the way I want you to think about it. There's not only there's nothing wrong with your brain is functioning extremely well.
Yeah.
It's looking at. Go ahead.
I said I don't even like how well it's.
I know.
Like, I'm so upset with how protective it is. I'm like, just drop it by now. Like, you know everything. You have such strong belief, but. Like,
but you know what? You know a lot, and you've put in a lot of effort, but you don't know everything you need to know, and partly you know too much. It's like it's not well organized.
Yeah, totally.
Listen, this is what the seminars do. They take all that information and they condense it down into a package so that you don't need to know anything else than what's said there. I take in lots of great things from other places, from Sarno, from Curable, from Howard Schubiner, many, many different sources. I bring all that stuff and I get it answered in one 8-session package, so that by the end there is literally nothing else you need to know.
Right.
You have to use the information.
Yeah.
But there's nothing else you need to know.
Right.
And as I've said many times already today, it doesn't matter what I think.
Right.
My goal is for you to come out of that seminar thinking he's right. There literally is nothing else I need to know. I don't need to keep looking. I now need to apply this. Now I understand why I haven't gotten better. Now I understand some of what to do about it. Now I can start building a plan that's informed by this to get myself some answers. And then when you look back at all these doubts, they'll start to melt away more. Because, as an example, the amount of time you've spent on this. Well, listen, somebody could say, I've been trying to build this house for 40 years and it's not getting done. And then you could say to them, do you know how to build a house? And they're like, no. It doesn't matter how much time you're going to spend on it.
100 times. Build a little bit.
And And look, you're very skilled at this now in many ways, but you haven't been given what you needed.
Right.
It's like trying to build a house without nails.
Yeah, that's how I felt this whole time. It's just like, and I think I'm building it, right? Like, I think I'm building it, and then like something will come in. Oh, it's generally like a high severity of symptom day, and I'm like, oh, this house that I built is still partially there. It's like partially built still, and I want it to be fully built.
That's right.
And so now I'm like back to the house. So now I'm like, okay, what else do I need to put in on the house or to build the house more?
Well, I think what you will like the more you hear about my system is that it is designed to give you the actual tools to fully build it so it is a fully functional house that's just standing.
Yeah. And one of the things that I put down in my notes here, and I think that this is maybe an appropriate time to say it, but I want to be everybody's poster child for their whatever TMS tool that they're putting out there. Like, I want to be their poster child. Like, like I've envisioned myself being like this person who could speak about a lot of tools that I've tried, like, and say like, oh my gosh, like this is the truth. This is like 100% what you need to do, and this is who you need. Like, this is who you need to follow. So like, okay, I have that thing. Like, I want to be everybody's poster child.
but here's a way of thinking about it that could be very different for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be the poster child of something, it's not you that has to deliver more. It's whatever's on the poster. Like I think this fits with the emotions column work we were talking about last time, where you put so much pressure on yourself for you to be the one to solve this. And you have, I understand how you came to this, but your expectations of what others are supposed to give you and help you with are pretty low.
Yeah, totally. That's totally my emotions column right there. Like, that feels 100% true.
Right. So here's what I'll say about that. If you want to be the poster child of this, I think you can be. And part of the reason is because you are very good at articulating doubts. That's a good thing. I mean, I know it's not fun to have the doubts.
No.
But you're very good at articulating it. And if we work on these doubts,
and
you do get better from my system, which I think I more than think you will. I'm 100% confident you will. And the reason I say that is because I'm addressing the actual problem.
Right.
The doubt is the problem, and I'm addressing it. So I think you could become somebody who says, you know what, it really is true that a lot of these things, they were helpful to a degree. They got the symptoms down a lot. They got rid of level 1 and 2 doubt a lot.
Right, exactly.
There was a lot of good things in these things.
Right.
But you could end up saying, it really is true that what got me the final distance was the fact that we, brought in the 3 columns and maybe doubt specifically. So, I understand your skepticism. In fact, that's what doubt is all about. I invite the skepticism. So your brain, even though it can annoy you in how well it's functioning,
right,
it's actually a good thing, because ultimately these questions need to be answered.
Yeah.
And what you've been running into is you have either been shy about bringing up the questions, or not wanting to be the squeaky wheel, or feeling like you felt bad about yourself that you were not having it work or whatever. Something either led you to be quiet about it, or you've asked the questions and they haven't been answered.
Yeah.
It's probably a combination.
Place the blame more on like the protective level of my brain, like, and then not finding, or not blaming the protection level, like, and blaming the childhood that I had and how good it is. And I'm like, okay, how do you unlock somebody that has this protective of a brain that I have and that works this well? I don't think any program has answered that for me.
So let me see if my answer answers it. First of all, any program that would require your brain to function differently than it does is going to be in trouble. Because your brain functions how it functions.
Right.
So I'd like to first say my system is set up to work with the brain you have, which I think is a good selling point, because that's the brain we're working with. But the other thing is that if a system is set up and it can't handle a really good brain with really good questions, doesn't that not speak so well of the system? Shouldn't it be able to withstand the questions? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Like, part of me, I don't know, blames myself. I know
you. Of course you do.
like it's my brain not relaxing. Like, that's, and I mean, one of the things that's out there, and I wanted to get, and I think this ties into it, as far as like TMS practitioners or experts will say, is one of the things that you're doing wrong. And I think I've heard this, or like recognize this as maybe one of the challenges that I've had, is stop trying too hard. And so I'm like, is that what's happening here? Is that I'm just trying too hard, and that I haven't relaxed and let go and just.
Well, yes, I think that is happening, but I want you to think about it in a particular way.
Okay.
That's happening because you have no other choice. You've had no other choice. Now you'll have a different choice. But the reason you were trying so hard is you very much want to get relief.
Right. I care about my life, right? Like, I care about living my life to the fullest.
Yeah.
So much that
right,
I try super hard to get there as quickly as I can.
And meanwhile, you are a very hard worker. So this all funnels right into, of course, you're working too hard. But here's the other thing. You have not gotten the help you needed to be able to not work so hard. And that's part of what I'm telling you is, I want you to stop questioning why you question things, and instead honor your questions and look for a partner who is going to work with you in this way, who will answer those questions. And that's me.
Okay. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with your questions. Your questions are good. Remember, I always say, ask your questions.
Right. Yeah.
Ask them.
Multiple ways to do that too. So that's something that you're providing is way different than a lot of other practitioners. It's like, you have Q&As every week that you're showing up for, and that people are asking. I try to make it as much as I can, but people are asking like really good questions there.
Yeah. No, they ask outstanding questions
that I don't see in any other platform. And to be honest, I'm off of pretty much all the other platforms because it's just the same story over and over again. Like, about the symptom, can this be TMS? Like, I've done all this work, like I'm getting stuck. Like, that's every day, every post. Like, I'm like, I'm done, because it's all the same story. But like, yours is different because the people are asking different questions, and and that's something else. Like, a professional's answering them, and then on these other platforms, you're just getting other people who are just in the mess themselves, like, answering. And who knows if that's, for me, that's hard for me to believe somebody else who's struggling through this, that's actually factual for me.
Yep.
Whereas like your question and answer is like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. He's done this, like, he's worked with himself. He's worked with thousands of people. Like, this is truly an answer that I can believe and move forward with.
And meanwhile, my answers have to make sense.
Right.
So, and I tell people, if I give an answer and it doesn't make sense to you, push back.
Right.
Keep asking your questions. See, first of all, I appreciate what you said about my system and the efforts and the Q&A. I appreciate that a lot. But I think it really is the case that my system is designed to expand. What many people are looking for is a system that makes it very simple and closes it down. Yeah. My system is designed to make it simple and organize it, but it's also designed to expand. It has to be, because there are people out there who will still have questions. And I want to say to you and to everyone out there, if you find that this is taking longer because you have so many questions, That's not your fault. They are legitimate questions that need to be answered.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're answering your level 3 doubt, can I get better? Partly you're saying to yourself, oh, I don't think I can get better because I have this mind that just can't stop asking questions.
Or
And
works too hard.
Or works too hard.
Like,
And I'm telling you, none of that is a problem. Your
Okay.
questions are not a problem. Your hard work ethic is not a problem. These are good things. What you need, though, is to have somebody who's willing to partner with you in the work, who's committed to answering questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's people out there in the mind-body field, Curable as well, all of these groups, they're trying to answer questions. I think they're doing a good job in a lot of ways.
Right.
But their system isn't set up around ask every question.
Right. It's still like, I feel like it's still like in an infancy. And I think that they'll get there and get stronger as they go.
I'm sure. And hopefully all of us in the mind-body field learn from each other. It's like this in the seminars is not just my ideas. So many of them came from Sarno or Schubiner, or, I get an idea from Nicole Sachs. There's all kinds of great places that I can derive things from. But I think the system overall needs to honor the fact that there is nothing wrong with your mind and there's nothing wrong with your questions.
Right.
Now, I say that, big deal. The question is, do you agree with what I'm saying?
I do agree with what you're saying. And
Mm-hmm.
this is like off topic, but it's like really pressing and I know we don't have much time left, but
Mm-hmm.
I do, like, so many people say like the journaling is like the key. And I've been to so many therapists that have said that too. And I did that for a year and a half solid, did probably miss like 3 days. And it just riled me up more.
Yep.
And I was more like really cognizant about all the areas of my life that were not going like I wanted them to go and I couldn't control. And I was so mad about that. So like that's was my experience with it. And then I don't know why I get what it's trying to do. It's trying to make you more an observational self, but that's
but that's not good. That's not going to help everybody. And in fact, it's actually going to upset some people, make it worse, like it did for you.
Mm-hmm.
See, I think that there's not quite enough nuance going on out there in the systems. Part of the reason I have 3 columns is you need different ways of understanding different things and different ways of dealing with different things.
Mm-hmm.
Journaling is an emotions column. It's an emotions column response. It's an emotions column action.
Mm-hmm.
But if the problem isn't in the emotions column in the first place, you can journal for 90 years and get nowhere. I call it hitting your head against the emotional brick wall. That's what you were being asked to do. And
or thought it would help me.
Thought it would help. But as the diligent worker that you are, you kept doing it. But I can tell you, I'm not surprised it didn't work, because that's not addressing the problem. Mm-hmm. You are a person who's already thought about these things a lot.
Right.
You're a person who can sometimes also get overwhelmed by that and not know how to organize it in a way that can be helpful. And on top of it, none of it was addressing doubt at all.
Right.
It was kind of saying, do this and it'll work. And you said, listen, I'll try anything.
Right.
And I'll work hard at it.
Right. And I'll work a year and a half, and then actually the person that got me to stop was actually the TMS therapist that I was seeing. And she's like, it's not working for you. Like, give it up. And I'm like, but what if I need Nicole Sachs's work? And I need her help, her direct help to help me. And her comeback will be, are you journaling? And I would be like, yeah, I quit. I quit because I did it for a year and a half. And then she would be like, and this is like me acting it out, well, just keep journaling and it will happen for you. Have faith.
Yeah. And I
that's
I understand that. And maybe that can even help some people. But what I'm identifying is that the problem that you've identified is a real one that some people run into. Plenty of people do get help from journaling.
Right, exactly.
Nicole has helped tons of people.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not an affront on what she does or anything. I just think that there's got to be answers when it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when it doesn't work? Why doesn't it work for
Exactly.
certain people?
Yeah.
These are good questions to ask. And what I want to ask you now before we wrap up today on this particular question, and we'll continue working on doubts, is
Uh-huh.
did I answer your question enough about why journaling didn't work for you? And just the fact that journaling doesn't work for all people, do you feel like that settles it for you? And you can kind of put that aside.
So it's because, let me reiterate, it's because it's emotional work, and it doesn't necessarily work for people who are already very emotionally aware and don't, and that's not the issue. The issue is more in the doubt or the power.
Yes. Yep, you
So
nailed it.
that's not going to work at all, no matter how much you journal or how much you excavate the emotions. Like, that's never going to completely build the house that we're trying to build to conquer the.
Exactly. Think about it this way. People can be hungry, they can be thirsty, and they can need sleep. Those are three main needs that people have.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll say each one represents a column.
Right.
And let's say you're really tired and you come to somebody and you're like, I'm so tired. And they're like, take this glass of water.
Right.
Just drink the water.
Right.
You'll be fine. And then you say, well, I've been drinking this water for a year and a half. And they're like, just keep drinking it.
Right.
It's not addressing the right problem.
Right.
It really isn't. So why didn't it work for you? Because it was addressing the wrong problem.
Right. Yeah. So basically, I just needed to like try things, and then if they didn't work, and then move on to something else.
Yeah, look.
Until you came along, I didn't feel like I had another like platform to jump to.
You didn't. You didn't. And I'm glad you do now. And I felt the same way. This is why I invented the platform. There were so many things that weren't available that I felt were needed. And look, I haven't tried everything. Like, I haven't gone through Nicole's program or Curable. I'm not saying their programs are flawed in any way
right.
that I know about. I'm not evaluating that. I'm just saying, when you say to me, why didn't journaling work for me?
Mm-hmm.
It's not because there's a problem with you. It's because it was not addressing the right issue.
Right. Everybody has different areas that are going to fully build their house and make the house complete.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the more that my answers make sense, the more you will have a sense, this house actually can be built, and I see why it wasn't being built before.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's exactly where I'm at. It's just like, I want the house built, like, and I want the house built well. Mm-hmm. Just like everything else in my life. Like, I like everything built solidly.
So I can tell you, the flaw has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with how your brain works or anything. Right. This system can work great for you.
Yeah. That's where I've been really second guessing.
Okay. Well, let me ask this. We'll finish up here today. Do you feel a little more solid about these questions, and have we resolved some of the doubts in talking in this way, or at least made progress on them?
Yeah, 100%. And definitely can let go of the effort. Like you said, like the effort on getting the water when you're really tired.
Yeah, right. I've drunk so many glasses of water, but you're tired. Go to sleep.
Right. And it's hard for me. I'll keep drinking the water and sleeping and like eating.
That's you.
That's you. All.
Listen, Carrie, you do not have to do all the work. Let me do some of the work. Okay. Yeah. Just bring me the questions.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything else. Just keep them coming. Think about today. You asked a bunch of questions. You got some answers that felt like they actually made sense. You weren't left with more questions about them. And that's how we put them to rest.
Right. And like you said, it's the more questions you have like this, the more time it takes, because questions take time.
Questions take time, but they also help you resolve it more fully. Mm-hmm. So you're on a good path, actually. You just need the right help. You need the right information, and I'm here. This is good.
Right. Thank you.
All right, Carrie, so I'll see you next week. We'll dive into the power column then, and we can always dip back to either of any of the columns. This is a fluid system. We go where you need to go. So keep up the good work, and thank you for your generosity in sharing your story on this and being open about your questions and trusting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Right.
Well, it's interesting because Carrie wants to be the poster child for something, and she is the poster child for this already because she's so good at recognizing doubts and articulating them. What she's not seeing is that that's a strength. She's seeing it as, oh my God, there must be something wrong with me, and I can understand why, because she hasn't been getting better from so many of these different systems, many of which are very good systems and have helped lots of people. But the idea is, remember, you make sense. Your symptoms make sense. How your progress is going also makes sense. And it's my job to make sense of it. So Carrie and I are starting to answer some of those questions, and you could see her relax in certain ways, or at least I could, when she got an answer that actually made sense to her. She's thought, maybe I can start to put some of these things to rest. So we're going to keep at that in the long run, but also in the short run as we do this consultation, recognizing doubts when they come up. Next week, we will turn to the power column, and I look forward to continuing my work with Carrie. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we'll get back to you personally.